Caleb and I are 19 years old and we own 28 units.
We did this all with no money, and these are the steps we took.
The first thing you gotta do is pick a market.
There are a million markets out there, so the question is, how do you decide on one?
The easiest way is just invest where you live because you know that market the best.
However, sometimes this isn't always realistic or possible. For an example, we live in San Diego, price per door is through the roof, and people hate landlords here.
Investing here was just not an option.
So due to this, we had to look out of state.
The first market we looked at was Reno, Nevada, and all its submarkets.
We have yet to buy in this market, but we still love it today.
We just couldn't get any traction because there's just such a lack of inventory.
It just wasn't a very big vicinity, and there were only 2 deals on the market.
So we had to make a decision. Are we gonna wait for a deal to come on market, or are we gonna pivot and look in a different market?
We ended up going with the latter and started looking towards Texas.
Texas still has great population growth, and there was over 500 deals on the market.
Some people prefer to just look in a few cities. For us, we prefer to look over the entire state.
Focusing on a large state instead of just a small city allowed us to look at a larger volume of deals.
The next step after picking a market is finding a deal.
And these deals can only come from 2 sources, brokers or owners.
With brokers, it's either on-market or off-market deals.
Most people always think that off-market deals are better, but that's just not the case.
A lot of times there's great opportunities just sitting on the market.
And the reason these great opportunities sit so long is nobody knows how to buy it.
A lot of deals that don't work conventionally can be fantastic deals if you implement the correct creative strategy.
If you're like us and you don't have money or a job, you can't do conventional deals.
Banks don't like lending to kids with no job and no credit history.
So you have to get creative. When we say creative financing, we're primarily talking about seller financing and contract for deed.
And the reason we look for these kind of deals is you don't have to qualify for anything.
Most owners who are open to creative financing have either owned the deal for a very long time and own it outright, or have very little debt.
After you find an asset that you would love to own in a great location, that's when you ask for the financials.
And when we say financials, we're not talking about pro forma. Pro forma is a bunch of absolute horse.
When we're looking for financials, we want actuals, P&Ls, and rent rolls. So you have the financials, now you actually have to go underwrite the deal.
And when you're getting ready to underwrite, there are a million different calculators to choose from.
At the end of the day, I would just find the simplest one. We like to keep it simple. It's just rents minus expenses.
And the nice part is with creative financing, you can customize the terms to be whatever you want.
This means you can customize your down payment, interest rate, and balloon to hit the metrics that you're looking for.
Besides this, there are some special provisions you can add as well,
such as no debt service, which we have done on a couple of our deals.
So now you've got your terms and provisions and you're ready to make an offer.
So we typically don't like to start with our best offer.
What this does is anchors the seller's expectations and gives you more wiggle room on negotiation.
On all of our 3 deals, we haven't got that first offer ever accepted.
So be ready for some negotiation. Typically when you're negotiating, you need to find out the one term that's more important to the seller than the rest.
Once you find out what the most important term is, you gotta hammer that one home on your offer.
Typically, since it's purchase price, we've overpaid on a few of our deals.
This allowed us to get a very low interest rate and down payment.
So you got your terms accepted, now what?
This is when you're gonna be putting the deal under contract.
When Chucky says putting it under contract, what he means is signing the purchase and sale agreement. There are other terms in that purchase and sale agreement that you likely haven't negotiated yet. A few of the major things we look for in this are: when is your earnest money due, how long for your feasibility, how long for your close, and is your note personally guaranteed or not.
One thing we really like to do is put our earnest money after feasibility.
The main reason we do this is that if anything comes up during feasibility or primarily in that inspection report, we can walk away and not lose any of our money.
You also have to make sure all your terms are correct.
When we say make sure the terms are correct, we're talking from experience.
We had an experience where the broker wrote up the purchase price $250,000 over what we thought it would be.
With this purchase price increase, the deal just didn't make sense and we didn't end up getting it.
We've mentioned a few key points in the purchase and sale agreement, but the entire document is important. Read it over carefully. So you've signed the purchase and sale agreement and you're under contract.
Now you're in the feasibility period.
Now there's a couple things you should be working on simultaneously.
One of these is finding your capital if you don't already have it.
I mean, if you're anything like us, you don't have it.
For our first deal, we needed $90,000, so we started booking meetings with people we know that had money and were interested in real estate.
This capital can come from people you already know, or you can go out and meet new investors.
In our experience, we've done both.
Another thing you should be working on during feasibility is getting an inspection.
If you're new to real estate like we were, you have no idea what you're looking for inspecting a building, so go hire an inspector.
Every inspector we've used has been from a local recommendation,
whether it be property management, brokers, or investors in the area.
This inspection isn't cheap, but you need to know what's wrong with the building if you're going to move forward with your purchase. No inspection comes back perfect.
There are certain things wrong with every single building.
You just need to find out how big of a deal these things are.
And if these things are really that big of a deal, you'll need to renegotiate your terms.
Or walk away from the deal entirely.
No deal is better than a bad deal. And not everything on the inspection report is a big deal.
If it's not that big of a deal, just be easy to work with.
And you have to remember that the seller is going to be your lender for the remaining number of years on your balloon.
You guys are partners. It's not good business to scrounge every cent you can out of them.
Another thing you need to be doing during this time is verifying all the financial information is accurate.
This is going to be through bank statements and estoppels.
And when Chucky says estoppels, what he means is an estoppel certificate signed by the tenant to verify their leasing and rental information is correct.
Bank statements are important to verify the information and make sure it's not just made up. Lots of people in real estate lie.
However, I can guarantee you the water company isn't lying about the utility. utility bill.
Either nothing was wrong with the building, you didn't have to renegotiate anything,
Or you renegotiate some terms that allow the deal to still make sense.
Now the feasibility period is over.
if you took our advice and you put earnest money after feasibility, this is when you put your earnest money down.
And by this point, you really should have your capital raised.
Now that you have that capital raised, now it's time to form your LLC and operating agreements.
We know some people that like to form the LLC themselves.
However, we just prefer to use an attorney. They're legal experts. We are not.
Make sure once the attorney completes the LLC that you assign the contract over to that LLC.
Partnership docs usually take a fair amount of time, so do not wait till the last minute to do this. We waited till the last second to form the LLC and partnership docs, wasn't ready at closing, and we had to get an extension.
You pay lawyers to get everything right, not to be fast.
Another thing you need to make sure you have done before closing is to get your building insured.
This can also be a lengthy process, so just like everything else in real estate, get on it early so time won't be an issue and you can close on time.
In an ideal world, every insurance policy could just be transferred over to new ownership, but unfortunately that's just not the case.
We've only been able to do that on one of our 3 deals.
What we do when the policy can't be transferred is contact an insurance broker.
A good insurance broker will make sure you get the best quote.
Don't always just go the cheapest quote. There are multiple different types of insurance coverages you need to be aware of.
Consult with your mentor to make sure you and your investors are protected.
Another thing you need to be doing at this time, if you haven't already, is finding the right property management company.
If you're at a state like we are, you're not going to be there to manage your buildings.
So you need to find a third-party property management company to do it for you.
Picking the correct company is extremely important, so vetting them is huge.
All the recommendations we've got for PM have either been through brokers or investors in the area.
And now your attorney should be wrapping up those investor docs and you need to get those signed.
So now you have everything squared away and it's time to close.
When you're ready to close, we recommend having your attorney look over your closing docs.
Upon reviewing, our attorney has found things in closing documents that were unacceptable to us.
We've actually given ultimatums to sellers. Either they change the closing docs or we walk away from the deal entirely. For the attorney to do this, it was $625 and it possibly saved us hundreds of thousands.
That $625 was 100% worth it to keep our investors' money protected.
One last thing you should be doing before closing is finding a note servicing company.
This will keep both you and the seller protected, and it keeps track of all the payments.
If you're fine with all your closing documents, it's time to sign.
And in these closing documents, there will be a HUD statement which will contain the amount of money you need to wire over.
And boom, close the deal.
And now it's time to like the goddamn video and subscribe.
And that's our exact process we went through to close our 3 deals.
A lot of people like to overcomplicate this whole thing, but if you keep it simple, it makes things a whole lot easier.